According to this belief, the treasure of sunken ships would enter Davy Jones' chest located in the deep, deep sea. So according to the belief, neither the crew nor the wreckage of the sinking ship can be reached, and the treasures on the ship with the sinking ship would be the spirit of the sea. The sailors' history filled with stories about the sunken ship and their treasures. Today, these stories are still popular and attract people's attention. These stories affect not only sailors, but of course ordinary people. Like on July 11th, 1502, the El Dorado, the Spanish carrack, sank during a hurricane in the Mono Channel between Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, with the loss of all on board. El Dorado was a flagship of a 32-strong fleet headed for Spain, but the flagship of the fleet of 32 and 800 men that sailed from that island from Hispaniola, which is Haiti and Santo Domingo, to Spain, unfortunately all passed away. It also carried treasure including 1,400 kilograms of gold tables and the island former governor Francisco de Bobadillo. Disregarding the warning of an imminent hurricane though, the ship was lost in the Mono Canal between Puerto Rico and of course Hispaniola, as we know, leaving no survivors. Sinking and shattering ships had tons of pearls and gold nuggets, and the ship carried an unimaginable treasure, and when the storm broke, some of the treasure had reached the shore, but most of the gold was in dust and ingot. A table made of some gold, which is located between the treasury, thought to be weighing, of course, as I mentioned, 1.5 tons, was one of the most valuable pieces. Sources say vary, but at least another 16 ships were also wrecked. Another was the Flor Do Mar in 1511, and the ship carrying gold and jewels stolen from the Malacca Kingdom in the region where Malaysia is located, and under the command of Alfonso de Albuquerque, was one of the famous ships buried in the water in the treasure in history. Shortly after his expedition, he was caught in a storm on November 21st, 1511, and was buried in the sea, very sadly. I mean, he did steal it, so karma. When the ship sank, a very important throne belonging to the Malaccan Sultan was among the loot buried in the sea with the sinking ship. Of course, the Sultan was very upset because he got ransacked only to have his stuff never coming back to him at all. The Spanish treasure fleet in 1567 was moving from Veracruz to Spain under the command of Admiral Juan Vallecasco de Barrio. The Spanish fleet was caught in a terrible storm when it arrived near Puerto Rico in 1567. He lost 5 of his ships during the terrible storm, and the severity of the storm at the time did prevent other ships from interfering with the sinking ships, and the treasures of course were buried. Together with both the ships and the ships itself, it is also known that the ship fleet lost 3 million pesos in this incident. Seafarers who could also reach the land under harsh conditions were also killed by the Caribbean inhabitants in the region. So even if they survived the sea, they could not survive the people. Nau Chagas in 1594, the ship was also sunk in the island while probably moving from East Indian Islands to Portugal by the British warships, had a highly loaded treasure. Apart from the treasure aside the ship, there was also treasures of 2 ships that he had saved during the journey, or saved. This ship was also containing a large number of jewels, also carried 3.5 million pesos. As a result, when the ship sank, all this treasure was buried in the water. Terra Company of 1605 as this Spanish treasure fleet, also which left the port of the Cartagena in January of 1605, consisted of 7 ships facing the end of a sudden storm. While passing through the Serranilla region between Yucatan and Jamaica, 3 ships were saved in the storm that they caught, and unfortunately 4 other ships were sunk, of course. Sinking ships were also known to carry at least 4 million pesos of jewelry, silver, and gold, at least these guys specifically. And in regards to Trinidad, the 1616, this ship, a Spanish Manila galleon, was caught in its typhoon on the way to Acapulco. A total of 94 tons of silver coins sank with the ship, sinking near the Osumi Pass in the south of Japan, and its exact value of the silver coins was at least around 3 million pesos. Merchant Royals was the ship where the most valuable treasure sank throughout the history of maritime. The ship, which was caught in the storm off of the coast of Britain on September 23rd, 1641, was carrying a highly loaded treasure. To express the size of the treasure it carries, we can say that the treasure on board was equal to 1/3 of the state treasury at the time. The ship was actually specially built in 1627 by British merchants. If we get more detailed information about the ship though, and the treasure itself it carries, we can tell the story of how huge the treasure ship sank. This ship had been trading with Spanish colonies and the West Indian Islands for a very long time, and this ship controlled by John Limbury left the Spanish colonies in San Domingo and sailed to reach England. On his way back to London, he has to stop at the Cadiz port of southern Spain, while the ship paused out of the port Cadiz for repair and maintenance. The Spanish ship assigned to carry the gold allocated for the Spanish army is burned, and it is not possible to deliver the gold to the army in Flanders. As a solution, the Merchant Royal is deemed suitable to carry these gold coins, and the ship's captain gets these golds and returns to London and sails in the late August 1641. Unfortunately, the ship, which was repaired at the port because it received water, continues to receive water when it left the port, and also the evacuation pumps of the ship broke down and sunk as a result of the storm that was caught in 23rd September 1642. 18 out of of the 58 crew members on the board were killed by drowning in the accident, and the ship known as also El Dorado of the Seas sinks in. It also carried 500,000 silver Spanish pesos, 400 gold Mexican silver, and 500 gold Spanish coin. Besides, there was also 300,000 silver, 100,000 gold, and jewels belonging to the merchants of the period in the warehouse of the ship. So if you guys want to go swimming with me, just let me know. For at least a century prior to the discovery of America, stationary production of the precious metals in conjunction with rapidly expanding industry and commerce caused a delicacy in prices of which, through its effects on profits, seriously handicapped business enterprises. The regime of falling prices was ended by the discovery of extremely fertile mines in America a few decades after the voyage of Columbus. As a result, Spanish ships like the Isabela took off, but Isabela caught in a storm in 1672 on its way back to Seville. This galleon and the fleet of the Duke of Verruga capsized. In fact, it's known that the ship's warehouse was worth $1 million worth of Peruvian and Colombian gold when Santa Maria was caught in the nose and sank in the storm. There's a lot of money that's sunk into these ships. Actually, this is very recent. A fishing crew in the United Kingdom recently caught a link to buried treasure, an anchor from the 17th century shipwreck carrying precious metals worth more than 1 billion British pounds, found in a fishing vessel a net of 20 miles south of Land's End, Cornwall. British media outlets reported that the anchor is believed to be from a merchant royal, a merchant ship that sank in 1641 as it held 100,000 pounds of gold and 400 bars of Mexican silver when it disappeared. Also known as the El Dorado of the Seas, of course, again, experts identified the anchor by its size and age as the ship went down through the Isle of Sicily after hitting bad weather returning to Britain from Mexico. The Merchant Royal wouldn't be the first treasure-laden shipwreck found recently in the UK. Last year, divers found the remains of the British ship carrying diamonds and pearls from India, as the Daily Mail reported, and in 1684 it also sank in the storm off the coast of Cornwall. Soleil D'orient, which belonged to the French East Indian Company, weighs about 100 tons, was carrying a gift of the Siamese kingdoms to France. This ship, hitting the rocks when it came to the southeast end of Madagascar, had sunk there, and at the time of the ship there was hundreds of diamonds, porcelains as gifts from Chinese Empire, and a dinner set of 1,000 pieces of gold as a gift of the Japanese Empire. All of these precious pieces, however, were buried beneath the sea. Santa Rosa, which is a Portuguese flag carrier ship, was blown up and sank after a fire broke out while in Brazil. This ship was sailed from Salvador, carried over 5 tons of gold bullion and silver coins and chests. La Victoria, when the ship sank, it was also buried with all its cargo, as it's known as present value treasure in the sinking ship in Anegada is around $1,750,000. HMS Victory, the ship which returned to the Galtabar Tun under the command of Admiral Sir John Balchin, was caught in the Great Storm of 4 to 5 October 1744, and the ship was caught in the storm of the Channel Pass, which was the largest ship of British Navy. When the ship sank, it included 400,000 euros of gold coins from Lisbon to loot of other ships. Notre Dame, the deliverance of the ship of a French galleon, was also carrying Spanish gold and was lost in the area between Havana and Cadiz for an unknown reason. The lost ship is thought to have sunk in anticipation, as known as 17 chests of carrying 585 kilograms of gold into the warehouse when the ship sank. In addition, there was at least 15,399 Spanish gold coins, 1,072,000 silver coins, and 153 gold snuff boxes, 23.5 kilograms of silver, precious stones and jewels, and 15 kilograms of silver ore, and a sword with a golden hilt and a nice watch. All these precious jewels and gold were of course buried with the ship, never to be seen again. Nuestra Senora de las Mercedes was part of a fleet of 4 ships where they were returning to Spain from South America while encountering the British while in Spanish waters, because the British is always on Spanish waters. This ship was clashed with the British, blew up after this conflict, as always when the ship blew up. Unfortunately, 4,436,519 silver and gold pesos were buried in the water with a large amount of jewelry. After this incident, Spain waged war on England. After all, they lost 4,436,519 silver and gold pesos. In the history of the maritime, very sad accidents have occurred, and many marine vessels have been sunk due to undesirable reasons, or different accidents have occurred. Depending on this, important treasures are buried in the water besides many lives, although some sinking ships have treasures after the accidents, as these treasures were remained at the bottom of the water. Perhaps some years after these accidents, some of these treasures are found with good research, with good intentions. However, there are still researchers and treasures of many sunken ships underneath the sea. Well, not researchers, sorry, which researchers are trying to still find. Maybe these treasures will be available in the coming years, as they were of course part of history. And speaking of history, that's all for today. Be sure to like and subscribe. My name is Jess, and I wish you all the best. Bye.